Good afternoon and welcome to a new edition of what we're calling Raslin. That's with no W, so we get the alliteration there. But I am Matt Harrelson. Alongside with me is Russell Parker. Now, I know we've already done a couple shows this week, but of course this is our 1 year anniversary week, I guess we'll call it. And since you're joining me now, of course you've been there with us since the beginning. Yeah. So before we get into...
It's been a good journey.
I was about to say, before we get into this part of the show, any memories so far over the last 365?
I rewatched the first episode, and I said this with a lot of Five's first episode, but I kind of don't like it. And I think it's because it just got better as it went along. Yeah. So looking back, it's like, oh man, I could have done better on this. We could have done better than that. But overall, I think every episode just improves even more, and I think we're bringing on new talent. And we're always getting new insight to sports, and we're talking about a variety of sports throughout. We've had a whole year of different sports on the show as well, so I think we've got a good variety of people on the show to talk about different sports, and just getting everything in motion with that. I think it's been great so far.
I agree. It's been a heck of a ride so far, and of course we hope to continue that over the next 365 days. One memory that comes to mind, just to kind of segue here, last year we did a WrestleMania 34 special.
Yeah.
Now look, every Ross is a production, but I feel like that was one of our, if not our first, main specific big production. Of course, you did all the graphics that looked great. We had all the belts and stuff, and of course we took a bunch of photos afterwards with it. But WrestleMania 35 is coming up now, and we are officially in WrestleMania season.
Yeah.
Of course, the Royal Rumble was last Sunday, so we're almost a week removed from the Royal Rumble. But I wanted to run through it because, as I just said, that means we're on the road to WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. Now, I've got to mention, you got this belt that you're hanging out with, and that was when Becky Lynch was the Women's SmackDown champion.
Got the side plates on it.
Got the side plates. Now, we'll get to what her future is going to hold, but as far as the Royal Rumble, she started out in a championship match for that belt. Of course, Asuka had it. Unfortunately, Becky Lynch tapped out. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, I think it goes without saying that Becky has been the hottest thing in wrestling right now over the last, couple months at least?
Yeah, ever since way back in SummerSlam, that's just been going on, and she's finally. I think the heel turn on her part has been phenomenal.
Can you really call it a heel turn?
I don't think you can at this point either, but when it started off that way, everybody loved it. She's got this attitude that kind of makes you think of Stone Cold Steve Austin a little bit. And I think she's running really well with her character now at this point. A lot of the things she says is actually kind of true because I followed her career for a while, and her being pushed down, and you seeing all the other ones go up, like Charlotte. You look at that, and you can see that she's been fighting every single day in, day out for that opportunity. So I think she's got a lot of truth to it. When you got a lot of truth in your character, it shows on TV.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up is the fact that she lost to Asuka in this match maybe surprised some people. However, once she lost, everybody in the arena had to know that she was going to show up in the Royal Rumble later on.
I knew that before all of that. That was my wild guess, and I was right about it. But,
you were. Of course, we'll get to that. Of course, by now, most people know she ended up winning the women's side. But, again, we'll get to that here in a second. In the meantime, the U.S. Championship match was actually part of the pre-show. Yeah, you can put that down now. Was part of the pre-show on the Royal Rumble, which that surprised me a little bit because it is a mid-tier championship, but it's still a championship. Nonetheless, we had Shinsuke Nakamura, who's already had the U.S. belt one time, get it a second time by defeating the champ Rusev. And one of the things I noticed from this, that first off, Rusev has also gotten a big push over the last 6 months.
Rusev
Day, to the point where he used to be a heel, now he seems to be face now. Mm-hmm. But it seems like after this match, they kind of put a little bit of dissension between he and Lana. There was a moment in the match where Rusev went to go hit Shinsuke. He moves out of the way. Of course, Lana's on the apron, knocks her off. Now, in real life, that doesn't break people up, but in this world, it does sometimes. Perhaps we'll have to see that. The thing I took away from this, though, Shinsuke wins the match on Royal Rumble. Then Tuesday at SmackDown, R-Truth beats him and wins the belt. And then beats Rusev to defend it, also on SmackDown. What's your thoughts on this?
What's up? I think R-Truth, he's actually from North Carolina.
He is from Charlotte, yeah.
They're representing North Carolina for a little bit. Many people out of North Carolina for wrestling. But yeah, R-Truth, finally getting the push. I think he's been needing for a long time. I got back into wrestling in 2015, and during that time, him and Goldust were together, and it was hilarious for a little while. But their career really didn't go very far, and of course Goldust went off somewhere else, and R-Truth kind of just stayed probably lower than just the mid card. He was at the low card, so finally getting his moment. He's been kind of riding the high with Carmella. They had the mixed match challenge a while back, and they were riding that really well. So I think both of them in general got a big push. R-Truth for sure.
Yeah. And maybe it just surprised me because R-Truth has been so low on the card that they pushed him. This may be before you got back into wrestling. I do remember at one point they tried pushing him after WrestleMania season when Cena had the belt. I think it was like 2012 or something. It's been a while. And he ended up, I don't know why I remember this, but he main evented with Cena at what was called Capital Punishment. Mm-hmm. And it was a specific pay-per-view that was held in Washington, D.C., hence the name. But I think since then he hasn't really been around many belts. Mm-hmm. So now he's got this belt. You think he keeps it for long? Because they didn't put it on Shinsuke, but just for 2 days.
I think they might have bigger plans for Shinsuke going into WrestleMania season. He might be part of a WWE Championship title match there. I think R-Truth, I think is his moment. He might hold it up until WrestleMania, maybe have somebody else to fight. Of course, there's another match going on that's before WrestleMania. So depending on how that one goes out, that's the Elimination Chamber match. Depending on how that one goes out, that could be someone who drops down to challenge him for the U.S. title.
Well, whoever the talent is, whether they come up with their, I don't want to call it gimmick, but their character, if you will, or whether WWE Creative comes up with it, it's up to the athlete to either run with it or not. And I feel like R-Truth is always trying to run with it, so maybe they'll give him some credit and he'll be able to hold on to this belt for a little while.
He's been that E that's in WWE Entertainment. He's been very entertaining lately.
Absolutely. So he's a new champion. We've got a couple of new champions as far as the SmackDown Tag Team belts. A combination of guys that surprised me from the beginning. I think it surprised a lot of people, but The Miz and Shane McMahon defeated The Bar at Royal Rumble to become the new tag team champions. So how long do you think The Miz and Shane McMahon can continue to work together?
I don't know. I mean,
Miz will burn you in a second.
Yeah, but Shane is also a McMahon, so
true.
I think they could both maybe do a heel turn. I think Miz is back on the face side now, but that won't last, I don't think.
Now look, I've always liked The Miz. I think The Miz overall has been an underrated talent for WWE when you consider the fact of guys that have come and gone. You look at Brock Lesnar, who has the belt and never shows up. The Miz has been there every week for the past 10 years, I think it feels like.
I don't think he's ever been injured either out of all that time. I think he got called out before on not playing it safe, as they would say. But, I mean, he's kept his career going. He's been very entertaining. Overall, he can definitely get you to hate him, but you love to hate him.
Yeah.
And I think he's kind of like the opposite image of John Cena in a way, because he's just there as much as he is. Yeah,
and you bring up a good point. It's always good to have a McMahon in your corner, especially the general manager, if you will. Is that what Shane's position is still, I think?
Yeah, I think I don't really know how
they've moved it around. Yeah. So anyway, Shane O'Mac, of course, always known for putting on a show. Mm-hmm. Even at age 49, ended this show with a shooting star press to win over Sheamus. So
I mean, Shane jumped off of a steel cage his first match back in WrestleMania, back in WWE a couple years ago.
He'll jump off anything.
I know, right? I mean, the Trussell will still jump off of that. So doesn't surprise me what he does.
Yeah. There was also another point. One of the things he does is that coast to coast from one turnbuckle to the other, which, by the way, is very impressive. Mm-hmm. I mean, and not just anybody can do that. However, in this match, he missed them because they ended up rolling out of the ring. But still, it just shows you that Shane O'Mac still jumping off of stuff and going crazy at 49. Let's move forward. So the Raw Women's Championship was Ronda Rousey. Of course, she's kind of taken over the women's side of it too, and she defeated Sasha Banks. Now, I feel like Sasha Banks personally is someone who has kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit, hadn't she?
And I think a lot of that is that a couple of years now, she's kind of dealt with some small, minor injuries that's probably set her back. That could be what it is with her. But, yeah, she's really talented. Her and Bayley both have been really talented. They had a really interesting storyline a while back. It was just kind of going back and forth. You're wondering when they're going to turn on each other. But I don't know if that's still going on at this point. I can't recall it. But, I think Sasha, I'm not sure what her future is at this point. I don't know. She's obviously not going to be in the Raw Women's title picture anytime soon, I don't think. Maybe they'll have a shake-up again. She goes to SmackDown. I think she might need that.
She could. Perhaps it's a good problem to have, though, that you have too many talented female wrestlers now.
Yeah. And it could very well help out adding some title belts.
Yeah, you very well could see that. Yeah, so let's get to the Royal Rumble. Of course, the women's side, Becky Lynch won that one. Actually came in for an injured Lana, but I think we all knew that at some point Becky was going to show up in this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now, there weren't any really surprises. We didn't see a Lita or a Trish Stratus or anything this year. But I think it really showed the depth that WWE has as a company now when they can throw out 30 women and put on a pretty good show, right?
Yeah, and I think most of those came from NXT, and then I think they had one from the Mae Young Classic tournament. But it just shows, like you said, the depth in it. The pool is very deep, and I think when they start coming up through NXT and then get to the main roster, like I just mentioned beforehand, you're going to see more titles pop up for those women. If I'm not mistaken, they got a women's tag team title coming very soon as well. Do. So that's already in the works. Who knows? Might have a variant of a U.S. title or Intercontinental title in the future.
We're actually going to get to the women's tag team titles here in just a minute. Also, Ronda Rousey coming over to WWE from MMA, I think has started a bit of a movement because now. Perhaps they were already there, but in NXT are a lot of former MMA stars on the women's side who are going to try to follow in her footsteps. And I don't see why not,
Yeah, I think one that comes to my mind in NXT is I think her name is Shayna Baszler. Yep. She's one of them. I can't remember another girl. She's on SmackDown, but there's a couple of them from MMA that's been coming over.
Yeah,
and it's not just women, but even I think some of the guys have been doing the same thing as well. But you've been seeing athletes from football also come in as well. So. Yeah, WWE is definitely a place where many athletes just want to come to. I think that's awesome for WWE at least.
Moving down the card here, WWE Championship. Daniel Bryan was the champ coming in, and he kept the belt by defeating AJ Styles by pinfall. I think perhaps, look, anytime these two get together, you're going to have a show, right?
Oh, yes.
I think so. With that being said, I think the biggest news out of this is Eric Rowan made his comeback. Dressed in flannel. And paired up with Daniel Bryan to perhaps down the road be his protector, if you will, his bodyguard.
Yeah, I think AJ called him on SmackDown his insurance policy.
Yeah, which is a good one to have.
Yeah.
And, they actually have a little bit of experience together because Daniel Bryan, which I thought was a terrible angle, but joined the Wyatt family there for a little bit. I'd like to forget that personally. But let's talk about Daniel Bryan here for just a second.
Yeah, let's do that.
This talking about belts, the belts that they usually have are covered in diamonds and all this. Well, he's decided to go a completely different route with this persona that he's taken on of the eco-friendly, save the earth kind of thing, which is different. I don't think we've seen anything like that.
I can't recall anything like that. I think it might have been a small thing like that in NXT, but it never took off. But it's definitely working for him.
So now he's got this new belt that's made out of hemp, wood, and stone. So what do you think about this? Because he's obviously not the first person to get their own personalized belt. Some come to mind was John Cena's spinner belt, or Stone Cold's smoking skull belt. Do you think Daniel Bryan's
belt?
Yeah, is he on the same level as those guys to be able to get his own belt, or is this more of an angle kind of thing?
I think it's a bit of both. I think, of course, you get the side plates like these here where you can kind of customize it yourself a little bit. But when you do a complete makeover of a tile, it really makes a statement that this guy is making a big impact here. He is going out there and he is, he's being the show. And I think Daniel Bryan has been the show lately. And I think in a way he kind of deserved it. And not to mention, I think it goes very well with his character that he would do something like that. So, it's kind of like with John Cena when he took the old U.S. belt and burned it and brought out the spinner one.
Right.
I thought that was cool back then.
Well, Daniel Bryan just straight up threw it in the trash. I don't know if he recycled it, though.
I don't know.
But which may be a thing later on. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, talking about Daniel Bryan, he was out of wrestling for over a year, I think, because he had, neck injuries. Of course, it took him forever to find doctors that finally would say you can go back. Mm-hmm. Isn't he kind of on a I'm going to prove everybody wrong kind of tour now?
I think so.
He's doing it pretty well
because people have been saying, "Why don't you leave WWE and go to small promotions and wrestle there?" He's been wanting to come back and prove that he can wrestle on the top of the world, and I think that's what he's trying to do, and he's doing it.
Yeah, because he came back, and then they pretty quickly put the belt on him. So, moving forward, I was talking about Brock earlier. He still got the belt. He beat Finn Balor.
Who has the belt?
Brock Lesnar.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. We forget what he looks like. Of course, if he walked in here, you'd know it. But, we've been, since this time last year, we've been complaining about this when we did the WrestleMania show. Somebody take the belt off of him. They did. They gave it to Roman Reigns for a little bit.
And then he had
of course, we find out that he's got cancer. And by the way, he's pretty much handling that outside of the ring. So, of course, we hope he continues that.
I think he's even starting in a movie, too.
He is, with The Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those Fast and Furious spinoffs, because they can't do too many of them, apparently. Anyway, but he defeated Finn Balor via submission, the Kimura lock. But Finn Balor, another guy that needs a push, and I think perhaps we may see more from him in the future. But what do you think about Finn? Before we get to Brock, what do you think about Finn Balor?
He had when I got back to wrestling, he was the biggest thing in NXT, and him and Samoa Joe were going at it back and forth all the time. And now, Finn Balor has kind of dropped off a bit.
Yeah, and
I'm glad he got the push that he deserved. But when he got injured as the inaugural Universal Champion,
never really got another shot at it.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfair for him that he's been put on the back burner like that when it wasn't really even his fault that he got injured. It was just an accident. I think that he could do a lot better with him.
Let me ask you this: as far as somebody getting injured and then dropping down to the bottom of the totem pole, we see that in other sports, though, especially football.
We do, but I think with wrestling, you got the fan base that kind of pulls your weight as much as yourself. So
sure.
Maybe the fans just aren't quite behind him because he's on the main card. And the main card NXT fans, those are completely different fan bases in a way. So that could also play a big role in it.
You're absolutely right. And then talking about Brock, if you're wondering who he may potentially fight at WrestleMania, Seth Rollins ends up winning in the main event, the Men's Royal Rumble. Before we get to that, though, something that I found very interesting. Nia Jax, I don't know if you heard about this.
Oh, yeah.
Comes out at the number 30 spot after R-Truth has been introduced, pretty much whips him down, and then takes his spot in the tournament, where she was pretty much handling herself pretty well until she called an RKO from Randy Orton.
And a 619.
And a 619. And a super kick from Dolph Ziggler. But that RKO pretty much put her out of business, as it does a lot of people. But what do you think about she's actually the fourth female to join the Men's Rumble. Of course, China was the first, but you can make a case that she's bigger than most of the men. But what do you think about women wrestling against men in sports entertainment? Is it more of it's too violent, they shouldn't fight each other, or because it's part entertainment, have at it?
I always looked at WWE more like an art performance. So it's kind of like a movie, but it's a live action movie. So I think it's fine. I think it's fine if we have intergender matches where they can have that. And it's not. I don't think obviously, I'm not trying to promote violence against women, but I mean, if women want to fight men, and if they want to go at it, I say let them have at it. Of course, WWE is not based on true stuff. So, you think about it. Somebody's watching that will think that this is okay, and obviously it ain't okay, but I think
in a real life scenario.
Yeah, in a real life scenario. And it's a lot of gray into it. I think maybe some of the TV networks probably have that issue going on with it as well. So maybe when they change over to Fox with SmackDown, maybe you might see some of that. Fox might be more lenient on that stuff, what they show on TV.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's fine if you get the right women to do it.
All right. So we're going to talk about WrestleMania preview here in just a minute. But before we get to that point, of course, WrestleMania is going to be in April. Now, I don't know if he's going to be there for WrestleMania or he's leaving afterwards, but we found out this week that Dean Ambrose is not going to re-sign his WWE contract when it expires in April. So what was your first reaction when you heard this?
I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Because I always thought him as kind of a guy who's just dedicated to WWE, and he probably still was, but maybe he's just not happy at this point. I don't think he's happy. I'm glad that WWE is going to allow him to stay until the contract expires and that they're okay with it. My question is, though, where's he go from here? And I wonder if maybe he might pick up a contract with, I think it's AEW.
Yeah, I've read that.
Yeah, so I wonder if he would go with that because I heard a lot of former wrestlers from WWE going over to there, and they're kind of picking them off one by one there, just over the months. And
well, not to make this a love it or hate it, but I hate this because for two reasons. One, you kind of take some of the suspense out of it. Like we know now, from now until April, he's not going to be around any belts because they're not going to put the belt on him and then watch him leave. He's not CM Punk, And then the other thing is, this means no more Shield reunions, right?
Well, actually, that's probably the best positive, if you ask me. I'm tired of the Shield.
Oh, really? Because whether you like them or not, they always get a rouse out of the crowd when they put them back together.
I was bored when I seen them.
Well,
but
I mean, there's some people out there, and I know it's some of the younger generation that say the Shield's one of, if not the best, group.
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that.
DX.
Well, see.
Well, we're going to go on a harder topic there if we get on that. But I think what's really going to suck is that you're not going to have that crazy lunatic guy anymore, who was interesting because it was supposed to be an unpredictable character. And he's not there anymore. He's always had some of the greatest lines I've listened to in modern WWE. So I think losing him is going to be really big.
It will. Perhaps, though, the silver lining will be it'll open up a spot for someone else to take over that type of character.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll have to wait and see who that would be. So
now I don't have a favorite Raw character anymore.
Oh, you'll find one. You'll find one. Between now and WrestleMania, now that the Royal Rumble's over, people sometimes forget there is another pay-per-view snuck in there, and that would be the Elimination Chamber.
Yep.
So a lot of things still up for grabs as far as who's going to fight who they're going to be pairing up against each other, who's going to be fighting for belts. But we'd already, after SmackDown, have a couple of matches set. So the WWE Championship is going to be Daniel Bryan, of course, the champion, in the cage with Styles, Jeff Hardy in there, which I think is a wild card. Mustafa Ali, which is probably going to be there in an Evan Bourne type situation just to jump off of stuff. Nobody really thinks he's winning, do they?
No, he might be the first one out.
Randy Orton and then Samoa Joe. Now, usually when I look at pairings of Elimination Chambers, for some reason my mind goes to, who do I know is not going to win? I'm pretty sure Ali's probably not going to win. However, the other 5 guys, any one of those could win, right?
I got a feeling it will not be AJ Styles. I think they might set him up for another, maybe a different matchup. Or, maybe he'll actually get back into a WrestleMania match afterwards. I don't think he's going to win the title. I think Dan Bryan, with a new title, I think they're going to drop that very quickly. I think they probably want that to go into WrestleMania.
You would think.
Yeah, but I mean, crazier things have happened. So,
they have happened. And, I mean, like I said, Jeff Hardy's there. They could put the belt on him. Of course, Randy Orton's. People forget Randy Orton's only like a couple of championships away from tying John Cena and then tying Ric Flair. So, I mean, he's up there. And then Samoa Joe, a guy that I think since they've had him on the roster has been vastly underused.
Yes.
So anybody could win, I think.
If I had to pick one that was not Bryan or AJ Styles, I probably would pick Samoa Joe on that one.
Now, we were talking earlier about the SmackDown Women's Championship, or Tag Team Championship, rather. That's already been set as well, and that's going to take place at Elimination Chamber. Now, not all of the teams are set yet, so I'm not announcing that, but it is going to be a match. So perhaps we will have brand new SmackDown Tag Team titles on the women's side after Elimination Chamber. Has this been a long time coming? It's time to do this, right?
I think so, yeah, definitely. You've had so many women factions out there, and not just recently, but over the years. I mean, you can go back to all the way back to 2006, I can think of, where you had people together. And then as you get into the modern days, we know the Bella Twins, and then you got into just recently the Riot Squad. So
Riot Squad, the 4 Horsewomen at the NXT level. Yeah. I
think there's a lot of different factions that have popped up recently that can very well go together. And I'm glad to see this. I haven't seen what they look like. I don't know if they revealed that yet. But
yeah, I haven't seen the actual belts. And I would imagine they'll do it for Raw too, wouldn't they?
I would think so, yeah.
Wouldn't that make sense?
Or it could be the title that jumps between brands. I hate to see that, but it could happen.
That very well could be it. And then on the men's side, we already know that Shane O'Mac and The Miz are going to be facing off against the Usos. The Usos won a kind of elimination-style match on SmackDown. So I guess they're done with the Bar. The Bar's going to move on and face someone else. What do you think? Miz and Shane move on after Elimination Chamber?
I think so. I think we're going to see maybe a setup for a WrestleMania matchup between those two. I think actually they'll lose Elimination Chamber. Maybe Miz or Shane, one of the two, will probably turn on the other.
Right.
And
that's what I'm
sets up for a big WrestleMania match.
That's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting them to lose this, then hate each other, then end up fighting each other. Meanwhile, the Usos will go into WrestleMania with the belts because they're established, and then they'll face the New Day, the Bar, maybe Heavy Machinery, a couple of Authors of Pain. I think they may be on Raw, but a couple of other those SmackDown or tag teams. So, but yeah, that's the Elimination Chamber. Of course, they'll be adding some more as we get closer to that in I think it's February, February or maybe early March. So.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about WrestleMania 35. Of course, we do know that Becky's going to be facing Ronda, and that was a huge moment on Monday Night Raw, wasn't it?
Oh, it was so intense.
Yeah.
I watched it after it went on, and I watched it and I was just like, ooh, yes, I can't wait for this match.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are excited to the point where, you've got basically two of the hottest things running in professional wrestling. Do they headline WrestleMania? Matter of fact, not headline. Do they main event WrestleMania?
I would love to see it. I think Ronda Rousey's name is probably going to be the cause of that more than Becky Lynch's name. But
it's setting up for it, though.
But both of them, they both have become over this past year alone. They both have become their own person in the WWE. They have established themselves big time, and I think it sets up for probably the hottest match of the show right now. Nobody's going to care to watch Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins or whoever it will be at that point. Nobody's going to want to. Somebody may want to see whoever the WWE Championship match will be, but I can't think of anything that's bigger than this match right now.
Look, we've been seeing for the last few years, Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, has done a great job. Actually, Paul Levesque, his real name, has done a great job at building the women's side of wrestling. And I think this is going to be the pinnacle of it, where we actually see them headline, I keep saying headline, main event WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's the perfect storm. You've got Becky, who is the hottest thing going. You've got Ronda Rousey that brings the name with it. Why not do it,
Yeah. And, I actually got something to throw at you for a second. It might be a curveball, because I've seen this pop up a few times. But we think about Charlotte Flair might be wedging her way into that match.
I could see that happening.
Because she challenged her on SmackDown, saying she wasn't done with her done with Becky pretty much. So they might sell that feud in the Elimination Chamber and be done with it. But I think it could be possible, and I hate to see it.
I mean, of course, it's possible that she could wedge her way into it and make it a triple threat match. Charlotte Flair, I like her. She's been champion multiple times for a period of time. I just think right now, in this moment, over the next 2 or 3 months, it's these two women's time to shine. And I think Charlotte understands that, being in the business her whole life. And I think WWE understands that.
As a matter of fact, we could see a WrestleMania rematch between her and Asuka for SmackDown Women's title. So
there you go.
That
very well be what we see. So talking about Seth and Brock, we keep talking, and Brock has the belt and never shows up but like once a month, if that. And of course, we understand that he's got this crazy contract that allows him to do it. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily mad at him. I'm kind of mad at Vince and WWE for allowing him to do this and have it for so long. And it's getting to the point, I know it's part of the storyline, but even Seth called him out on it Monday, saying that he's like a part-timer. He never shows up, and that perhaps is their clash together. But of course, people remember a few years ago when Seth cashed in and took the belt when Brock and Roman Reigns were against each other in the main event. But
Roman Reigns used that same argument against Brock last year leading into that match. And, it's just like the same old.
It is.
Something new.
And I hate to have to ask this because I feel like I've asked it a dozen times, but will they take the belt off of Brock? I mean, will they give it to Seth, the guy that's there every week?
I hope they do. I know Seth has kind of had an up and down career lately with WWE, but I think he's up there now, and I think he can continue on with that.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, at this point, I don't even care who has it, as long as they take it off of Brock, unless he's willing to start showing up and actually be a champion that's going to be there every week. That's what you want to see as a fan, right? And
I'll even give Ronda Rousey credit because she shows up at least on a good regular basis, for the show. She has not gotten to that Brock Lesnar level. I don't know if she will, but right now she's definitely not being that.
Perhaps she's not on the quote-unquote level, but she is the women's counterpart of Brock Lesnar. Yeah.
What I meant was being on the level of, hey, I can be a part-timer. And
I'm saying, like, as far as coming over from MMA or, going back and forth, even though Brock started in WWE, she, like you said, she shows up, if not every week, at least every other week, and represents and is part of the storylines and doesn't have Paul Heyman out there talking for her instead, So, again, take the belt off of Brock, please. And then finally, regarding WrestleMania, talking about part-timers. Think we'll see The Undertaker this year? Or you think he's done? Or who knows,
Well, we know that John Cena got his butt kicked last WrestleMania against Undertaker.
He did.
He was expecting him to show up. He never did until the last second.
Correct.
We might see Cena call him back out again, or maybe Undertaker just plays around with him again. And maybe we'll actually have a real match this time.
Well, The Undertaker's at the point now where this is about all he does.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. He's part of the WrestleMania lore, if you will. But he's also at the point where it has to be a heck of an opponent to face him, right?
Yeah.
Is there anybody besides Brock Lesnar, is there anybody on the main roster that's worthy of taking on Taker? Styles, maybe? That's the name I thought of.
Yeah, AJ Styles. I mean, maybe even Seth. I know he's got another match. So
Randy Orton, maybe
Randy
the
Orton.
Legend Killer.
I would love. I really wish they would have ended the streak of with Randy Orton. I think that would just made sense because he, the Legend Killer persona. But I don't ever want to see it at that point.
Well, the mystique of him being undefeated at WrestleMania, of course, we know now is gone, losing to Brock.
Yeah.
But you have to think that they're, and I know he won last year, but they wouldn't send him away with a loss, would they?
I don't think so, unless it's a buried alive match, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
That'd be a long way and go out.
And then finally, as far as WrestleMania coverage, you think we'll see any other of the older stars? Because we always do, right? Triple H is probably going to be in there. Kurt Angle will be in there somewhere. He's still wrestling. He wrestled on SmackDown.
Yeah.
He lost to Baron Corbin, but he's still out there wrestling. Maybe some guys we ain't even thought of that'll come back and be a part of a match.
Well, the show's up in New Jersey this year, I believe, right?
It is.
MetLife Stadium. So I don't know if any of them are up that way who might just make an appearance. Because, of course, when they had it in Dallas, all the Texas guys pretty much show together. So I'm not really sure who could. Maybe someone. Maybe Edge.
Yeah, but he won't be able to wrestle, though.
Not wrestle, but he might have something going on.
Yeah, maybe. And I don't really know who could make a comeback and show up, but we always see it. I remember us at the WrestleMania show we did last year, us discussing was WWE leaning too heavily on older guys. But I think we've all figured out that that's just kind of what they do, right? It's part of the nostalgia of WrestleMania, isn't it?
Yeah. I think you kind of look at WrestleMania as looking back on the history, and as maybe Hulk Hogan might show up.
Well, he's back in the company now, so it wouldn't surprise me one bit. And WrestleMania is like 4 hours long, and it gives them the ability to, look at some of the guys from the past, present the guys from the present, also have some of the guys from the future get in on it. So
I'll say you might actually see more of the future than the past this year because I can't really think of anybody, like I said, off the top of my head who will show. But there's a lot of deep depth in the NXT pool that might pop up there and then.
And at some point, I don't think they've reached it yet, but at some point WWE's going to have to turn that page and go all in with the young guys, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So speaking of the young guys, let's finish up here. Super Bowl Sunday is tomorrow, and something that I'm very happy about is WWE's bringing back Halftime Heat. Now, Sunday Night Heat's a little too old for you. I remember it. It came on Sunday nights, and as I was telling you before we started taping, I think it was like a 1 hour show. It was a taping from like after Raw or something. But then if it led into a pay-per-view, it was live, and it was the pregame, what they have now. But this brings back memories to me of when last time they did this, and I want to say it was like 1999. So you'd have been, 3 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was The Rock versus Mankind at halftime in an empty arena. If you haven't watched it, I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere. Go and find it.
I've seen a video of it.
You absolutely need to see it if you haven't. Matter of fact, if I remember correctly, The Rock pins him using a forklift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah. So great match. So these guys that I'm getting ready to list have a lot to live up to, but it is a lot of the younger guys who are just or just coming out of NXT onto the main roster or are still in NXT. You're going to have to help me with these names here. But Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, and Adam Cole. That's three that are on one team versus Aleister Black, Velveteen Dream, and Ricochet. So obviously they're pushing some of the young guys for this halftime show. First of all, because it's NXT guys, you think anybody's going to watch?
I think a lot of people, especially diehard wrestling fans outside of the WWE fan base, will watch this. NXT is big for people outside the realm of WWE, so I think you're going to see a lot of that. Some of the people who just generally watch WWE will probably watch it as well. I think they'll be on Facebook as well, so you might just mute your TV during halftime show and watch it because it's right there.
Yeah, and it's different, and it's been a long time since they've done this, so I think just the novelty of it, for people my age, we remember the one I was just talking about. For people your age, this is kind of a brand new concept, so I think that'll get people to watch. But
I'm with a dual Super Bowl this year. I have no objection to this.
I'm curious where they're going to do it. If they're going to do it in an empty stadium, is it going to be in Atlanta?
Maybe
where the Super Bowl is. Center or maybe in the where the Hawks play. In their arena. I don't know. Maybe there'll be a whole crowd there. We'll have to wait and see. But with that being said, who are you taking?
I have a hard time believing that Ciampa and Gargano are going to stick to the team because they've hated each other for the past year now. So I might have to go with the other team.
I'm going to go with any team that has Adam Cole on it. So I'm taking Ciampa, Gargano, and Adam Cole to win halftime heat. So, of course, that'll fill up the block there in between the first and second half of the Super Bowl tomorrow night. So make sure to tune in. It's on Facebook, right? WWE's Facebook page.
You can watch it on all their platforms.
All their platforms, yeah. So definitely check that out. Well, that's it for Ross Raslin, man.
Ross Raslin.
And we're another year in the books here for the RO Sports Show. And once again, we appreciate everybody that has tuned in throughout the last year and hope you'll continue to do that as we move forward into the future. In the meantime, hope you enjoy the Super Bowl tomorrow night. And Russell Parker, I'm Matt Harrelson, and perhaps we'll see you on more Ross Raslin as we get closer to WrestleMania.